It's been 50 years since the Simla Agreement. It was signed on 2nd of July of 1972. Since then, there's hardly been a treaty that has occupied so much space in public memory. Let's start with the background. It was signed in the aftermath of the Bangladesh War of 1971. It took about 6 months to get the agreement together, and for the two parties, meaning Indira Gandhi from the Prime Minister then of India, as well as Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, President of Pakistan, to come together and sign the agreement or sign the deal. You know, Bangladesh War happened because there was genocide against the people of Bengal or East Pakistan by West Pakistan, and they had risen in rebellion, were ably aided by the armed forces or defense forces of India. Eventually, a new country was born, Bangladesh. The relations between the two countries had actually hit rock bottom, and we thought there would be this treaty would serve as a new start. As far as the clauses which are there in the treaty, there were primarily three categories of broad areas on which there was an agreement signed. The first bit was about the fact, which is also tom-tommed a lot by India, that all issues between the two countries will be resolved bilaterally. And we've used this and cited this agreement repeatedly at international fora as well. Whenever a third-party intervention or America or somebody else has offered to mediate, especially on the issue of Kashmir, and we've said we already have an agreement, whereas we say that all issues will be resolved bilaterally. And they were supposed to follow the Charter or the UN Charter. The second point of the agreement was that the two countries will encourage people-to-people contact so that there's less misunderstanding between the people. And third, extremely important point was about the line of control, the LOC, being respected. So they did not want any border violations, one might say. These three were the major areas or the framework of the agreement. India and Bangladesh were supposed to return 93,000 Pakistani prisoners of war that they had taken, and also India vacated some very strategic locations that the Indian military had taken in Kashmir at that time during the aggression, as well as gave up about 5,000 square miles of area of Sindh as well as South Punjab, which the Indian military had actually occupied. So it was a huge amount of concession that India made when they signed the agreement. What India hoped to achieve was that there would be a fresh start or a fresh chapter in the relations between India and Pakistan after this agreement, and Indira Gandhi might have somewhere in her heart felt that hopefully it could be a stepping stone for a resolution or a peaceful resolution in Kashmir. One would wonder why we left it unwritten. There were primarily two reasons, and one from India's side, one is from Pakistan's side. From the Indian side, Indira Gandhi thought that if she agreed on paper to make LOC the international line or the international border, then she would be targeted by the opposition, that she conceded Pakistan occupied Kashmir as the entire territory to Pakistan, which would not go down well in India. From the Pakistan side, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto thought that he'll be grilled by the Pakistan army. They would never agree to something like that, and they think that it's too large a concession to make to India. So both the leaders had their own territories to guard and their own reasons why they didn't want to put it on paper. But again, I am categorically saying it. It is said that this was a promise. There is no written word on it that one can cite and say that this was actually the case. But had this been the case, or one more reason was that they needed to come to an agreement because Soviet Union was also putting a lot of pressure on India and Pakistan to sit on the table and finish the war, because they felt that, and that was still the Cold War era, they felt that if this agreement doesn't come through, it will invite for adventurism from America and from China, which Soviet Union did not want at all. Did we actually gain from it? Or what is the assessment 50 years later as we sit in 2022? For one, the one clause of bilateral relations or all issues to be resolved bilaterally is something that we have used to the hilt in all international fora whenever the issue of Kashmir has come up or third-party interventions come. So to that level, which I also mentioned earlier, we have gained certain advantage. But really, if you see how much we conceded to Pakistan by giving away those prisoners or giving away that kind of territory, did we really gain? Is the question. We see that no, Pakistan did not stick to at least its side of the agreement because they violated the LOC and came across the Indian border, as you know, in 1999 during the Kargil war, and these people were literally entrenched in Indian territory, and they were Pakistani regulars, and the Indian Defence Forces had to free that territory from Pakistan's grip. So they did not stick to their side of the treaty. And also the fact, coming back to the issue of whether the two leaders, and this was a very, very strong rumor, had agreed to kind of solve the Kashmir issue as well as the border issue with the conversion of LOC into international border. One doesn't know whether there was real truth in it, but if there was truth and if actually Zulfikar Bhutto had given a promise to Indira Gandhi, we know at the end of 50 years that definitely it was a false promise.